And away we go. It is the Nightcap, brought to you exclusively by our good friends at Hail Marys. Go see them. They're in Cheviot. They're on Harrison Avenue inside the Door District. You can walk from bar to bar with your drinks, but, maybe you're going to watch the NCAA tournament this weekend. Do it at Hail Marys. 27 TVs, 9-screen video wall. There's not a bad seat in the house, and they subscribe to every sports package DirecTV offers. They can stream all the big games. And with Red season coming up, Cincinnati sports will always be on the video wall. Brand new walk-in cooler, brand new draft lines. And not only do they pour the coldest Cincy Light around, they do so in 32.8 degree frosted glasses. All right, Aaron.
Weird night.
What a night. Apparently, Richard Pitino is the new coach across town.
Who would have thought?
I'm not gonna get into it, but yeah, I got some interesting information tonight on that whole process. Apparently, the smoke from Chris Mack was smoke from Chris Mack and was not what Xavier internally was actually doing. They talked to Richard Pitino 3 times yesterday, finalized the deal today. I guess Chris Mack got word that it was done, which is when he put out his announcement that he was staying at College of Charleston. And then within a half hour, John Rothstein, which if I'd made that phone call 30 minutes earlier, I would have had the scoop that Richard Pitino was going to be the new coach at Xavier. And that would have been chef's kiss. But, oh, well. I was on the phone when Rothstein tweeted it.
The crazy thing about all of that is that there were people who were entering the portal who were telling Rothstein and others that they were they'd been contacted by Charleston/Xavier. That was a report that came out. So I guess I don't know what any of that was at this point.
Crazy.
Hopes and dreams. I don't know.
I mean, I'm guessing there were people at Xavier that told him they would help him out and try to get him the job, and he wanted the job. So everybody just ran with that it was a done deal. But what have we learned? We've done enough coaching searches here that ADs don't show their hand.
Well, also, why would Xavier have hired a search firm if you were just going to hire? If you're going to hire Chris Mack back, that's a waste of money.
Yeah, but a lot of places do that just to cover their butt on due diligence and make sure that it can't come back, that they didn't explore other options and da 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 da. Like it's a scam if you're a company that runs a search firm, because you get paid a bunch of money to essentially do very little. But that's what search firms are about more these days than going out and finding your coach. It's making sure you dotted all your T's and crossed all your I's, so to speak.
Sure. That's it.
That's what they're used for. They don't really make hire, like athletic directors, like that is where search firms are actually like really involved. But answer me this: if you're an athletic director and your job is essentially on the line for the hire, do you want somebody else making it, or do you want to be the one that makes the hire? I think they used to let search firms do it, and then guys were getting fired for search firm hires, and ADs were like, I better fucking do this myself. But Richard Pitino, new head coach at Xavier. Wow. Did not see that coming.
Xavier's whole situation this offseason has been absolutely insane.
But that brings us to the transfer portal opened yesterday. And I take a lot of heat, but trust me, Bearcat fans, there is transfer portal news coming, but it hasn't happened yet. So I allow the information to flow as the information flows. There have been a couple names that have, resulted in Cincinnati showing interest. One I have confirmed that UC is definitely interested in, Cam McDowell. Talked about that last night on the board. He's at a lower level now, D2, scored 27 points a game. The connection is he originally signed and went to Georgia. Guess who recruited him to Georgia? So there is a connection there with that one. That one's one to keep an eye on. I've got a couple names that I think are going to go in the portal this week. Like 3 names of guys I think that will be legitimate targets that are going into the portal this week. From my understanding, like they're going to make calls on guys as they enter. They'll watch tape. They'll see if they, might have a little bit of interest. They'll make a call. But for the most part, there's like 15 or so, 15, maybe 20 names that they have circled. If this guy goes in the portal, we're going to be involved. We have connections. We know the agent. We recruited the kid, one of the assistants, so when those pop up, I'll let everybody know on the message board that these are names to keep a close eye on. Same as I did last year with Arrington Page and Connor Hickman and Dylan Mitchell, even though I didn't think Dylan Mitchell was going to happen. I didn't know at that time. There was a layer of connection that we're finding out more about now. But one way or the other, when the names are in the portal, I will let everybody on the board know these are ones to keep a close eye on. But the portal opening, and they tried to do a little bit better this year. Last year, it opened the day after Selection Sunday. This year, they moved it to the day after the Sweet 16. I would think at least it shouldn't open until after the Elite Eight, the Monday after the Elite Eight. And then you have a dead period. Listen, the reason I say that, you have a dead period that surrounds the Final Four. So you have a week for the portal to open where kids can't go on visits. They can make phone calls, whatever. But like you have a week to allow things to kind of organize themselves. And then when the dead period after the Final Four opens, then the visits begin. And then, they already, Aaron, they eliminated basically on the road recruiting in April for coaches. So coaches aren't out on the road on the weekends at AAU tournaments. They don't do that until May. You've got the entire month of April to be the portal. Why continue to, like, you're forcing teams to rush coaching hires. You're forcing teams to like not go through a real process because they don't want to get behind in the transfer portal. And it just doesn't make any sense.
I just wonder how often now you're going to see situations like what Utah did, where you fire a coach mid-season without even getting to see what you could have potentially put together the rest of the season going forward, simply because you have to be able to, if this is going to be the timeline that you have to be able to allow your coach to set up his staff, to get things in place. But you don't even necessarily know who is going to be available, fired from other schools. You don't know. You're essentially limiting yourself to somebody who's going to take a step up, hiring a mid-major or something thereabouts, if that's the way that you choose to do it. Because you don't know who else is going to get fired. Like, I still am just boggled as to what the rush is on any of this, simply because you don't have an enrollment period that you need these kids to be done in the portal by. You have until the fall.
Well, I mean, I talked about this on, I think, with Dave a couple weeks back when we talked about exactly all we knew. Like, you could foresee all of this was going to happen, but workouts start in June, like June 1st. Like, that's when these kids are going to be required, if at all possible, to be at their new school. We don't, in football, it's messy, but it makes sense because you have to get kids started by like the second week in January in order to be on that timeline where they can go through spring practice and like go through winter workouts and be a part of the program and hit the ground running. You don't have that in college basketball. There's no deadline that these kids have to start school until they start summer classes June 1st, Aaron. Like, what are we in such a rush for? That part just, it's illogical to me that we're forcing this like it's football.
Yeah, I mean, what is your window right now? Ideal window for like the coaching carousel. You have really, truthfully, up from what the end of conference tournaments until yesterday
Yeah.
to have your new coach in and staff in place, because otherwise you're already behind the eight ball.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I don't know. It's one of those things that, like, if you could sit down and use some common sense. Like, the reason coaches were the reason that they aren't on the road in April anymore. Because, like, as the portal started, Aaron, we would go to these events that would be open weekends for coaches to be out on the road, and everybody was back home hosting visits. So, like, you would see like director of ops, like, because what the NCAA allows you to do is, if you can't send a guy out on the road, a recruiting assistant, you could, like, fill in somebody. So somebody else on your staff could go on the road while that person stayed back.
Like a GM.
And there would be no coaches on the road. There would be very few assistants on the road because everybody would be back on campus hosting transfer portal visits. So they all said, we need to not be out on the road. Like, we can't be out on the road in April because we're busy. Well, then just use your brain and push this back even another week. Like, might it hurt the Final Four teams? Okay, but you're not hurting them that bad because that's a dead period. And they're not going to be missing out on, like, there are schools that are hosting visits this weekend while the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight are going on.
It's crazy.
The Final Four is protected from that. It's a dead period because all the coaches go to the Final Four. There's a coaches convention. Everybody's in town. Like, that's the national hub for college coaches. So they close down and it's a dead period. Okay, great. Do it next Monday. Everybody can start making their phone calls throughout the week. Everybody goes to the Final Four site on Thursday. They have their deal on Thursday and Friday. The Final Four happens on Monday, and then the floodgates open, and everybody's on the same page. The schools that fired their coaches have hired new coaches, got a staff mostly in place. Like, it makes so much sense that there's no way the NCAA does it.
Or just have the legal tampering period from that Monday to that Thursday, and then then you can actually start hosting visits and what have you after the Final Four. Like,
well, yeah, if you want to, you can extend the dead period to Monday, Aaron. You, like, the dead period starts, I think, Friday of the Final Four. You could make it start that Monday and go to, like, Tuesday, where you can make all the calls you want.
Yeah.
Like, whatever, get things organized, build your plan of attack, and then the visits start on Tuesday or Wednesday of, like, the week after the championship.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, I guess if you look at even in Xavier's situation, Pitino doesn't have a staff. He just got there a day after the portal, so he has whatever connections he had in the portal. Sean Miller, he same thing at Texas by a day. So, like, what are we doing? These guys are in, and the portal just opened, and they're just figuring shit. They have an office. They don't have a home. They don't have a staff. They don't have a clue, really. They have what they know through the interview process, and that's about it. I don't know. It just I cannot wrap my mind around what we're doing here, because it just seems like it goes back to what we always say about the NCAA, about the NFL, and any big sports program, whatever league you want to talk about. They're always reactive instead of proactive, and this is what happens.
Yeah.
You just end up with egg all over your face.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to what happened tonight, like, Sean Miller left on Monday. Wouldn't it behoove Xavier to feel comfortable to have 3-4 days in this window to hire a coach and, like, go through a full process, as opposed to Chris Mack got
48 hours.
48 hours. He got announced by Texas on Sunday. press conference yesterday, right? And then today, Xavier's hiring a new coach. Like, that's not fair to, I hate to say this, I want to wash my mouth out with soap, but that's not ultimately fair to Xavier to have to be acting on a timeline that quick. Now New Mexico is acting on that same timeline. Whoever gets the West Virginia job, whoever gets the West Virginia job, that school is going to be acting on a rapidly accelerated timeline. Like, just give it a little room to breathe and let people make decisions and then start the process of the portal.
Well, I know everyone's been making their jokes on Twitter and all of that about West to Wake Forest. That's a worst case scenario, truthfully, if you're a Cincinnati fan. I don't know how you expect the program to get better if West goes. He hasn't interviewed yet. So say West went to Wake Forest in, I don't know, a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever the case would be. And then Cincinnati has to turn around and try and go through the hiring process. After that, now you're looking, what, a week after the portal at best case scenario before you have a coach? That sounds like a horrible plan of attack.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like it's allowing that school much of a chance in year one.
No.
So it's been a wild day. It's been a wild day. Well, Dave and I will have plenty to talk about tomorrow, I'm sure. That's the Nightcap, brought to you by Hail Mary Sports Bar, right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See ya!